Inez Curl is going to read a story about the car we loved. Inez Curl.
The car we loved. Jeff, my husband-to-be, I hope to be anyway, was a very romantic guy. While he was courting, on one Sunday in the winter, he came up for a visit at Grandma's farm, driving a horse and cutter. Lots of blankets to keep us warm. We traveled over the hills and fields. When we came to a sheltered spot of some trees, we stopped to share a thermos of hot tea, and the horse got some hay to chew on. Then in the spring, it was no surprise to see him coming up the lane, riding a bicycle, with a little bouquet of blue crocuses in his hand. It was a 12-mile drive from his farm to where I lived with my grandmother on her farm on the 9th of Brock. He was exhausted by the time riding his bike all that way, so thanking him for the flowers, I got him a cold drink of water and a sandwich. Then we went to the orchard and sat under the apple tree, and we talked. We talked about our future. He thought he would maybe be able to buy an old car from a friend when he sold some of the grain that was left over from the feeding the pigs and the cows over the winter. I knew nothing about cars or selling grain at this point in my life. But the following week, we went to a dance with Jeff's brother, Chess, and his friend, and in the family car. We had a great time. We danced every dance. Jeff never mentioned about the car. I thought maybe he had changed his mind, and I was a little disappointed. It was springtime, and they were busy on the farm. The next 2 weeks was with planting potatoes and corn and grain. When May arrived, I had not received a letter or any word from him. I thought, goodbye, car, goodbye, Jeff. Then the following Sunday morning, coming up the lane was this blue car. I should say yellow because that's the color in the picture, but our car was blue. I had not seen one like this before. It was a 1928 Model A Ford. The body was blue with a hard top, a hard canvas top. It had a rumble seat, and at some time in the car's life, a spare tire had been fastened on the back of the bumper. And oh, it had a running board. And the kids would hitch a ride on that running board to go to the swimming hole. Jeff paid $45 for this wonderful running car. It was very expensive. So at that time, something was always going wrong with it. That turned out not too bad because Jeff had an Uncle Herb that had several Model A Fords in his backyard in Newmarket, and he was always there to come up with the part that was needed. The previous owner, being very smart, had hooked up an electric start, so one did not have to get out and crank the car to start it. Just turn the key and push a button, making sure the choke was just set right. The radiator would leak. We knew where every creek and watering hole from Seaford to Peterborough. The brakes were unpredictable. One had to be prepared to gear down to stop. Would never do in today's driving. It had 3 gears. First gear, second gear, and yes, we had a backup gear. Sometimes you had to make sure you parked so you did not have to back up. And if the battery was low, you parked on the side of a hill so the car would start and roll forward. With all its troubles, we loved our Model A Ford. Jeff taught me how to drive after we were married. He would sit close to the door, and I would sit as close as I could to him and take the steering wheel and work the gas and brakes and the clutch if needed. An exciting experience. We had Jeff's brother and my brother in the rumble seat. I was having a lesson. We were on a washboard road, country road, headed down the hill. And the car started to sway back and forth. And the boys started screaming, and I was scared stiff. But thankful, Jeff took the wheel and held it straight, and all was well. After knocking down a fence, getting stuck and nearly putting my head through the windshield, Jeff decided I was ready to drive for my license. We made a date to go to Newmarket, a town that had many hills. It was a nice day, and I really felt confident. The gentleman came out to the car and looked at it and said, "Oh my, is this safe?" Jeff was standing there, and he said, "We just had Herb check it over. Everything's fine." And everybody knew Herb Gelba was the best mechanic around. The man introduced himself as Tom, and we had better get started. We got in the car and we took off. Jeff wished me luck. I was just hurrying along fine when Tom hollered, "Stop!" I slammed on the brakes and he nearly went through the window. It was a stop sign and I had not seen it. Then he said, "Keep going." I was just going fine again when we headed up a hill and I had to change gears, and in doing so stalled the darn car. I looked over at Tom and he was shaking his head and looking pretty grim. I got the car going again and made it over the hill. We were nearly back to the place we started. I have a feeling he gave me my license. He just wanted to see the end of me. I have driven many miles since then and still do. A few of the young couples that lived on the 5th of Scott back then would take their babies to the dances. Our Model A had the perfect place behind the seat. There was a shelf, just the right size for our Lucille to sleep while she danced. After every dance, we would go out to see if she was still asleep. She's here tonight. She's still with us. If she woke up, we headed home. It sounded terrible to me now, but back then it was something people had done. We also took our little ones to the Saturday night show as well. It would not be safe in today's world. There were no seat belts back then, as we all know, so us older people know anyway. So we used our right arm, putting it out to keep the child, putting it in front of the child when we were going to stop. Back in the 40s, the grocery store sold gas, and the pump would be right in front of the store. I needed groceries and gas before I went home, so I decided to get my groceries at the general store. Instead of heading to Humphrey's general store where the land was flat and lots of room to pull up to the pump, that would have been too easy for me. I pulled into Smith's store on a slight grade. We went in, I got my groceries, paid for them, and headed back out to the car. I was parked not as close to the pump as I should have been, and the old guy who put the gas in said, "Next time, park a little closer," not quite using those words. By this time, that wonderful starter no longer worked. Had to lift the hood and fasten 2 wires together that get into the car to start it. My Model A Ford started right away, thank God for that. Then I had to get out, undo the wires, put the hood down before taking off. The guy standing in front of the store sure had the entertainment for that thing, laughing their heads off. I made sure I never went back there again. Well, our dear old Model A Ford, her days were numbered. Jeff decided to make her into an auto track. He went to Aurelia to buy the parts to make a tractor out of our car. Uncle Herb came and done the welding and whatever it took to make a tractor. It worked quite well for plowing and cultivating. So our old Model A had a new life. I still think fondly of the times and miles we spent in our Model A Ford.